Hello everyone. Welcome to our webinar on mobile and tablet learning case studies from around the world. Good morning and afternoon from whichever part of the world you have joined us from. And thank you for being with us today. My name is Megha and I work as a product trainer with Upside. I'm going to be doing a quick introduction before we get on with this webinar. There's a couple of housekeeping things I have to go over. You'll be receiving the recording of this webinar via an email. We have some polls lined up for you as well during the course of this webinar, so please do participate. And lastly, feel free to ask any questions to our expert using the chat facility. Now, just a bit about the company, Upside Learning. For 10 years, we have been helping organizations of different sizes and types to improve performance through better learning. With our head office in India, we serve clients based in the UK, USA, Australia, Middle East, North Africa, and other countries. Our wide range of innovative learning solutions include Upside LMS, our multi-award winning learning management system, Upside to Go, our mobile performance support platform, and custom learning solutions for desktops, tablets, and smartphones. We have been recognized and awarded by Brandon Hall, Training Industry, Deloitte, CLO, Apex, Red Herring, and have won the award for E-Learning Team of the Year for 2013 by E-Learning Age Awards. And here's a snapshot of some of the clients we work with. Alright, then let's begin with the webinar. It's my pleasure to introduce you to the speaker, Mr. Amit Garg, Director of Custom Learning Solutions, Upside Learning. Amit, over to you.
Thanks, Megha. I hope everybody is able to hear me out all right. If you're not, please raise your hands. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from today. Thank you very much. We do appreciate your time. Upside Learning has actually been involved in supporting mobile learning for a few years now. We've been writing about it on our blog for the last almost about 4 years. And we've been supporting some industry research, the latest one being from Towards Maturity in the UK, which is a in-depth study on their benchmark report, the main benchmark report that they have been conducting for about 10 years. So this report is available for free on Towards Maturity website and Upside Learning website if you care to download that. And we've done similar reports earlier with ASTD in 2012 and with Towards Maturity again in 2013. So the idea really is in supporting mobile learning. This webinar is in the same series where we are trying to help organizations make meaningful decisions, more intelligent, more knowledge-based decisions on when they get on with mobile learning. To get started with today's session, let's first get our heads around what is mobile tablet learning. It's kind of not really absolutely clear whether we're talking about mobile learning or tablet learning or kind of mixing them up. So if you look at the devices that you would be faced with in your organizations, you would tend to have this extreme between the desktops or laptops to smaller mobile devices. And tablets would essentially feature somewhere in between depending on the size of tablet that you're looking at. It could be a 7-inch tablet or right up till 12-inch or even bigger. But essentially those are the kind of devices that are there in the spectrum. Now, depending on the devices that you are targeting for your learning solution to be delivered on, you would choose appropriate solutions. And we are seeing quite a few examples of these, and some of them we have kind of collated in the case studies that we are sharing today. So for instance, if you were doing learning on desktops as well as tablets, and that's really the focus area, then you are typically doing the traditional e-learning that you would have seen over the years, once that was really put onto desktops and laptops. You're just making it available on tablets as well now. So while the front end in terms of from the learner perspective, it doesn't change much. it just becomes touch friendly, but it doesn't really change much. It's in the back end where you do all the technological changes to make it HTML based so that it is tablet compatible. And this is an area where we are seeing a lot of products being created. Our organization does a lot of work in this area because clients are typically coming up with requests where they say, oh, we're doing this e-learning, which is primarily to go on desktops and laptops, but why don't we also make it available on tablets, because a certain section of our audience has started using tablets, so it will be good to make it available even on tablets. And we're seeing this as a big requirement coming in. The second area would be the other extreme, when you are really targeting just the mobile devices, maybe the tablets and smartphones. Now, when you're doing this, intuitively you would imagine that this is for something which is, to be delivered on when the workforce is mobile, maybe even offline, maybe just doing it as a performance support, just-in-time access. So this is typically not the traditional learning, but more towards mobile learning, and you can deliver it as web-based solutions or you can deliver it as app-based solutions. You would go for app-based solutions when you need offline availability or when you need to use devices capabilities which can't be really used through the online modes. And there is another trend that we are seeing, which is targeting all the devices with the same solution. So you make one solution and you make it available on right from desktops to mobile devices, which is how most of the new age websites work. So you have websites which work well on desktops and laptops. They work very well on tablets as well as on mobile phones. You would find them, the layout changes, the text changes, even the options change. Sometimes, especially websites where you are having some actions to be taken, it would possibly show you those actions straight away on a mobile device, because that's what you are possibly intending to do on a mobile device when you reach that website. So those kind of designs which are either adaptive or responsive would probably be the best solution when you're looking to cover all of these categories of devices. So that's just a quick overview of what we really term as mobile tablet learning in terms of what kind of devices you would be really targeting and hence what solutions. So we just have one poll today, and that is to get a sense of how many of us are really using any mobile tablet learning in the workplace. So if we could request you to participate in this and put in your options. All right, about 77% have voted. Right, so pretty much everybody has voted. So we have here, the results as 72% are already doing any mobile and tablet or mobile or tablet learning, while 28% no. So there's a fairly large proportion of people who are actually doing some mobile or tablet learning. Great. We hope that for people who are not doing any tablet mobile learning, you would be able to pick up some, cues from the case studies that we're showing here today. And even for people who've just begun with any mobile learning, you may get more ideas, more different types of solutions that can be implemented in different situations. All right, moving ahead. Incidentally, the report that we were just talking of, the Towards Maturity report, it actually says that 2013 was the year when mobile learning became the norm rather than the exception. And they found that 71% of their participants were using mobile learning, pretty much what we just found in our short survey. But if you dig deeper in that report, you'll find that 46% are actually using and 25% are still experimenting. So essentially that would mean 1/3 of those who are actually saying that they're using mobile learning, 1/3 of that are really toying with the idea, maybe doing some pilots, maybe just starting off. They don't have a strategy in place. It's those initial days where they're kind of working their way through mobile maze. And hopefully even for that set of audience, this session would be useful in picking up ideas. All right, so here we have 8 case studies lined up for today, and of course, you can't really cover case studies in a huge detail in an hour session, all of those. So we have short kind of caselets that we will be discussing, and what we'll be presenting is what the organization really wanted to do, that is their requirement, what solution was proposed. We will show you a few screenshots of each of those solutions, and more importantly, we'll also share some challenges and learnings we have had from those projects, which of course we have tried to implement and incorporate in the future projects that we have worked on. So let's begin with this medical devices company, which is based out of US. This is of course a large medical devices company, and they essentially wanted to have their flash-based courses converted to HTML. And the requirement was really coming out from their movement to tablet devices, where they had provided some tablet devices to their sales force, and they wanted those courses to really now work on both desktops as well as tablets. One of the crucial requirements they said was they want to match exactly the same look and feel, because they had those standard players and templates that they were using for other programs as well. So even this program need to match that very, very closely. And of course, it had to be SCORM compliant because they were delivering it through a tablet compatible LMS. So the same LMS would be accessed from desktops as well as tablets. So this is what we really created for them. If you can see here, if you can notice at the bottom of this screenshot, you have chapters, you have section, lessons, everything in terms of the menu that you would get in a flash-based program was recreated in a bespoke HTML course player. And all the elements that were there in Flash player and program were captured. So creating an HTML player was really one of the bigger things on this project. There were, of course, a lot of animations in the program, so we went ahead and converted the smaller animations to GIFs, and the larger animations and audio syncing we kind of achieved through jQuery. Of course, again, as you would imagine, in any Flash-based e-learning program, there were a lot of rollovers, which we converted to clicks, of course, because you don't have rollover state on tablets. The key learnings over or challenges on this project: number one, there was no storyboard or no documentation, and that's really something that can happen whenever you are picking up any legacy course which you've kind of made 2 years, 3 years, 5 years ago, and now you want to really convert it. The storyboard and documentation is, chances are that they might be missing. And while we had the source file, so we could reuse the assets from those files and we could reuse whatever was possible, but we had to really work backwards and re-engineer the interactivities to understand the logic of those interactivities, why they were programmed in a particular way, what was the desired objective of those interactivities. So some of those logic we had to really work backwards with. We also faced this challenge that IE lower versions don't support HTML5, and this project, mind you, was one of our earliest HTML5 projects that we did about 3 years ago, and obviously IE lower versions still don't really support HTML5. So we had to kind of work with a mixed code of HTML4 and 5 so that we could cater to both desktops as well as tablets. We also realized that testing on different devices and browsers is kind of expensive. It takes more time and effort. So, of course, it was our first project, and we realized that based on our experience here, and that's what we have then incorporated in our future projects. But yes, because HTML5 is really not implemented in a uniform manner in all browsers, there are still certain tags which are implemented uniquely in different browsers. So it becomes a real challenge to really get the same output on all browsers. So you do need to do that testing on different browsers. But yes, once you've done a few projects of this kind, you would tend to avoid some of those tags or use them in a specific manner, so they are kind of doing the same things on different browsers. All right, so that's the first case study. The second one is from Vocalect, again in the US. Vocalect is a client that we've been working with for over 4 years now. We've kind of given them a large set of our offerings. We have our LMS over there. We've done a whole lot of e-learning projects, custom e-learning, localization, translation services, simulations and games, etc. In fact, we won a e-learning Age Award with Vocalect last year to be the e-learning team of the year in the UK. Now, Vocalect is the world leader in voice-enabled warehousing and supply chain solutions, and they really wanted to create a library of learning nuggets to reinforce their ILT programs. Of course, they had multiple objectives associated with that. They wanted to reduce time and cost for repeat training, mitigate the risks of knowledge loss due to attrition, and reduce the time and cost of ILT arising from software obsolescence. So multiple objectives, but again, the key really aim was to provide some sort of a just-in-time performance support solution which could complement their ILTs or the instructor-led training programs. Again, they wanted this to be compatible with desktops and iPads because part of their workforce or audience who was going to use this program was office-based, and a section of, or the other part was really warehouse and field-based. And because these were learning nuggets, they need to be made searchable in the LMS so that anybody can really reach the exact nugget when required. So really getting into the performance support domain here rather than purely being e-learning or traditional e-learning initiative like we would imagine. So we essentially created a very minimalistic HTML player for them because these snippets did not have more than 1 or 2 videos that were embedded in them. So each of these videos were really created in Flash and then converted to videos and embedded in an HTML player. So you had this bespoke player created for them, and we also had the LMS customized to an extent so you can search even to the score level, not just curriculums and courses. And we added a metadata file to each of those scores, and that would be an XML file that is kept outside the course. So what that would really help the organization do is if they want to change the metadata or keywords associated with a particular score or a curriculum, they could easily do it and just re-upload the file. So some of the challenges that we faced on this project: ensuring interactivities occur after the animations, etc. Because this was a longish program, and in the ILT mode they were delivering it in a different structure where the interactivities would really come after a longer time, and when we were converted them to smaller scores or nuggets. Can you hear me? Thanks, George. All right, so sorry, I'll go back. So Flash was really the fallback option that was required here for IE8. Okay, I thought I was kind of not audible for a moment. Sorry about that. Okay, before we move on to the next case study, I'll just pick up a question that is coming from Udi. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Is it compatible for Android devices? Well, Uri, the first program that we did, the medical devices one, was compatible with Android devices, and we did testing. See, technically they are compatible. It's just that if you don't test it on those different devices, there could be minor issues. This particular project we just did for iPad, so we did not test on Android devices. Okay, cool. So this is the third case study, which is from Al Jasser in Saudi Arabia, and it is about teaching English language skills to Saudi people. They obviously wanted offline availability so that the people who subscribe to this app would be able to do those lessons offline and maybe repeatedly without any difficulty. And there was an in-app purchase mechanism associated with this. So this is, this is how it looked, and it will give you a little bit of brief how it was structured. There were 64 courses in this program, and 2 of those courses were made available for free in the apps which were themselves free on the different app stores. So for iOS, BlackBerry, and Android, and a subscriber would download those apps. You would do those 2 courses, and then if you like them, you would register with the service provider. So if you register, you would get a confirmation code on SMS. So that was their way to validate, who are the users. And then from there, you would really be able to make purchases for the rest of the courses through the in-app purchase mechanism. So there were these 2 things that were there, which is in-app purchase and the SMS notification feature that were built in. And we essentially worked with our own Upside to Go platform, the mobile performance support platform, modified it to suit this requirement here. And it also had capacity to or capability to author lessons. So what we did was we created 5 courses for the client, and the rest of the courses the client wanted to create, and they also wanted to have an option of editing and creating courses in future if they wanted to add more. So we created a sort of an authoring framework associated with the tool itself, which they can then utilize and use the templates that we had created for the first 5 courses to create further courses by themselves. These are some of the other screenshots of the app, how it flowed. If you notice on the last screenshot, there is this button for Arabic, so you can switch the language whenever you want. And as I said, there was an in-app purchase and SMS integration integrated into the project. The key challenges that we had, if you're working on native devices and you have to work on different platforms, I think you will face some challenges of, not each platform has the same way of really accepting plugins and other things. So in-app purchase on 3 different platforms were a bit of a challenge. We had to actually go in for 2 different solutions. One was one card which worked for Android and Blackberries, and iOS has its own separate payment gateway. SMS notification testing also was something that we had to really depend on our client to support with that, because they were based in Saudi Arabia and we are based in India. So for every time we had to test that feature, we would send an SMS to their phones, and they would then revert back and say confirm whether they have received it or not. So yeah, the testing phase we had to really depend on the client because we were in a different geography. All right, there's a question from Shankar. Are these courses tracked from an LMS? Shankar, if you're asking about the Al Jasser one, the Upside to Go platform is itself a tracking platform. So it functions like an LMS, but for mobile devices. It has its own backend, which is like an LMS, all the authoring capability, assigning of courses to learners, creating learners, departments, etc. So there is a LMS which is sitting behind the Upside to Go on the server side. I hope that answers the question. Okay, so our next case study is from Toyota, again from UK. the car manufacturers in the world, and they wanted a you know a glamorous looking app for iPads for their Toyota Yaris launch event about 2 years ago in the UK. And they had actually planned to have the iPads with pre-installed apps and which would be distributed to the attendees who came for the event. Now, so this was created as an app where, of course, the material came in terms of imagery and other things was all proprietary, which came in from the client. We created the structure in terms of creating this wheel-based or steering wheel-based navigation menu, so you could choose various options, and of course you can select various views. You can even swipe through the car from one side to another. So there was a native iPad app that was created. It was self-contained, downloaded and installed. And when you clicked on any of those hotspots, you would get more details. You could swipe. So there was more exploratory approach that was provided in this. And of course, visual cues for specific gestures. I think the only challenge we really faced on this project was on timelines. Given a marketing event related solution, timelines were always kind of on the premium here. But yes, otherwise it was a fun project to work on. But something that is important to take away from there is you will possibly find mobile and tablets to be more amenable to customer education, and hence some of the work that we do as learning professionals might not be just directed at our own staff. It might actually be going out to our customers. So mobile and tablets might just be more useful in those areas as well. All right. Now next case study is Zangro, which is from UK. Zangro is one of the largest janitorial products distributors in the UK and Ireland, and they essentially wanted to train their own employees as well as distributor executives on their products. Of course, their employees work in an office environment, while their distributor executives are largely in the field at client sites and other locations. So the key idea was to provide that just-in-time access to product information, and they wanted an integrated solution. So essentially what we provided to them was a solution which would work on right from desktops to tablets in terms of the learning courses that we created. So we created a lot of induction courses and product training courses for them. Again, as I said earlier, this is very simple looking course that you would have done in Flash, but just that this was created in HTML and it was available on tablets as well. In this case, even in adaptive structure, so it could work in a portrait view as well on tablets. Also, we integrated our Upside to Go solution with our LMS, so we had a unified solution provided to the client. The Upside to Go part was really used for notifications, for sending out product user guides, for allowing the audience to really download documents on their devices and have them handy with them whenever they needed it, even in an offline mode. So essentially that's what the solution did for them. One interesting bit that we added to this particular project was integration of a QR code reader into the app itself. So anybody who was having the app, if they would scan the QR codes printed on the products, on the actual product, the containers, the bottles and the various containers they had, it would launch a product user guide, which would be a 1 to 2 minute video, which essentially explains how to use that particular product. So that was quite nifty for the kind of people they were targeting, where they don't have to remember anything, no URL, no website to go to, or where it is kept. You just scan the code which is printed on the product itself, and it will load a video on how to use that product. Our key challenge here was we were doing adaptive design I think for the first time, so it just proved to be a little iterative for us, more than what we had imagined. Again, like the in-app purchase mechanism for different OSs, we had a little bit of a kind of a struggle to find something which would be common, so we couldn't actually, we had to employ different solutions for different OSs. And we ended up using Flash as fallback for lower I versions. Interestingly, this product was appreciated quite a lot, and Zangro went on to win the Cleaning Show 2013 Innovation Awards based on this solution. So that was quite pleasing to us as well. All right, so our this is the fifth case study now, which is from UK again, called Cable Calculator. And as you can possibly imagine by this photograph, it is for electricians. What they are supposed to do is they are to calculate the size of the cable, that is the thickness of the cable that they need to use for each installation, right from the main board to the actual application. And the process is quite involved, where they have to depend on charts and tables, and there is British standards booklets that they need to refer to, and of course they need to know which formula to use where. So it is dependent on the skills of the electrician and their knowledge of formulas and their ability to rightly apply those and read the correct things from the table and really process it in a depth manner. So it was a long, cumbersome, unreliable process, and they really wanted a simple tool to calculate cable size, which could be available in the electrician's pockets, which could make it simple and more reliable and more reassuring to everyone. And of course they wanted offline availability in this, because electricians may go and work in areas where there may not be online connectivity. So this is what we created. It was meant only for the iOS platform. If you can see here, there are 5 steps to the process, and in each step you get a form to work with. You can fill in data or choose depending on the options that are available, and you proceed through the steps and you get to the final stages where you kind of accept the solution and close it. You could save it for your future reference, or you can even send it as a mail. So you could possibly send it to yourself as a mail for keeping records. Maybe you can send it to a supervisor to approve it before you go and implement that solution, etc. But some of those features were really built into the solution that were quite handy. Our key challenge on this project was really understanding the process itself, how an electrician goes about doing this calculation. It is, as I said, quite involved. There are more than 25 steps that are to be taken. I mean, we of course divided it into 5 screens, but there are quite a few things, and then referring back to tables and charts again and again, it kind of becomes a little confusing. And also depending on what starting point you are at, what which situation, what kind of equipment, there are different charts. So you also have to be careful. It is not just one chart. There are just too many tables and charts. You need to know which one to refer to when. So our next big challenge was, once we understood the process, was to convert the graphs to tables, because an application would not really accept graphs. They would essentially need to be converted to tables so that the application could read those. And coding the complex equations that were there, and there were many of those which need to be coded in Objective-C. For some of those we don't have ready functions sometimes, so we need to really have to work through that to create those equations. All right, our next case study is from a leading mining company in Australia, and actually this project has not yet been completed. In fact, we're just in the initial stages, but it is quite interesting to share the case, or the business case, because of which they have gone ahead for something like this. I won't be able to show you any screenshots of this, but I can certainly share the requirements. So this is a company where, just to give you a brief background, they have their mining sites almost about 1 hour, slightly over 1 hour flight duration away from the main cities. So their workforce really lives on those cities, and they travel to the mining site every week. So essentially they go there for a week and they stay there on the site for a week, and they come back and a replacement batch goes on the site. So essentially they do a week on and a week off. So every time the new batch comes onto the site, they need to brief them about what has changed and what has moved where, what work was done in the last week, what problems did they face, what equipment is working, which was maintained, which wasn't maintained, etc. So there were lots of things on which they need to be really retrained, kind of re-inducted. It is not really about skills, it is about just giving them knowledge about what has changed in the week that they were away. So they wanted to eliminate that time from when they reached the site, because they were giving that time in training the moment they reached, and that was lost revenues. So they would want to utilize the in-flight time. By utilizing the in-flight time, they wanted to just eliminate the time they were spending on the site. So essentially what we proposed was using Upside to Go, our mobile platform solution on performance support solution on tablets with multi-user features. So it would require a bit of customization so that it allows two different users to work with the same product and save their records separately. Essentially in a 1 hour flight, they could possibly have two people using the same iPad, so they don't have to invest in multiple or so many iPads. Also, because they have been using Microsoft PowerPoint as their authoring tool for their training programs, the way they were conducting the training so far, we would rely on the same thing so that we don't change the workflow much. But we would create authoring templates within MS PowerPoint so that they could be then pulled in easily and published into Upside to Go. And of course, the workflow will involve weekly authoring and publishing of courses. They were already authoring those courses, just that they need to be published now to a digital platform. And then downloading of the learning offline or in flight, for learning offline in flight, just before they would get onto the flight. So they would have a control room or a store room at the airport where they would get these downloaded onto the tablet devices before they were given to the users. Now again, these are just challenges that we foresee. We haven't really faced these because, as I said, we haven't really implemented the solution yet. But I believe authoring workflow will take a little bit of time to settle down because of new processes and the new way it is being implemented. We will have to gather user feedback and see what needs to be modified. So possibly the authoring workflow will take a little bit of time. And also I imagine that there would be cases where they need urgent templates. So they would say something new needs to be told and we haven't really done that. So we haven't really covered in the past programs. So maybe we need a new template to be done. And maybe there could be other such issues that can come up. But then again, time will tell. So our last case study is on FRED, which is the framework for responsive e-learning development. It is an internal framework, something that we have created for our own use, but it actually builds in a lot of learning that we have had over the last 3-4 years working with HTML and HTML5 projects, moving Flash-based programs to HTML, converting just app-based programs, etc. To be able to create this framework, essentially, we started with these objectives because we were seeing a lot of HTML work happening, and we were also seeing, we did adaptive earlier for one of our clients, as I showed you, Zangro. We realized that the development of web-based stuff was moving the responsive way. So we decided on creating a responsive e-learning development framework for ourselves. There was no real tool available when we started working on this project internally. That was about 18 months ago, slightly more than that. We wanted the framework to support all major platforms and browsers so that we could reliably create solutions which would work on all of these major platforms without really tweaking the code every time we work for a client. So essentially that kind of assurance comes in. We also obviously wanted all kinds of audio and non-audio multilingual capabilities in the program, compliancy, etc. Now this is what we have finally created. These are some of the samples that we created using our framework. I just take you through some of those screenshots. This is a normal text and image kind of layout, one template where you see the images of a certain size. It kind of shrinks and scales to a smaller size on a smaller device. The menu remains at the bottom, but when you go to the mobile device, the menu moves to the top, the image kind of completely vanishes, and the text kind of wraps a little more than what it does here, and here it doesn't at all. So that those kind of changes happen automatically. The solution really recognizes the device on which you are watching it, and it kind of layouts itself to present it in a more meaningful manner. Something which is noticeable is that the font size remains readable on all devices. Otherwise, if you were just squeezing the content, it won't remain readable on small devices, as you would have experienced on certain non-responsive websites if you see them on your mobile device. This is another template, which is a carousel we have, where it functions as a carousel on both the desktops and laptops and tablets. But on the mobile device, it is a click and reveal. So because the carousel won't really give you a good feel on a small device, so you just converted it to a click and reveal there. Similarly, this is a scenario template where you could navigate through the scenario on desktops and tablets by clicking these buttons 1, 2, 3 here, or the next and back on either sides of the frame, or by just swiping on the touch devices. But on mobile devices, that has been completely redone, so you can just scroll vertically and see the whole scenario presented dialogue by dialogue. So here are a few other templates, again, slightly different layouts, but really catering to a different presentation on mobile devices. So it is easier to read and just experience the whole thing rather than having a cramped thing on mobile devices. Video-based templates are kind of responsive themselves if you've created them to high fidelity so that it can work well on mobile devices. That's a quiz-based template. All right, so the solution really has about 20 unique templates as of now, and we'll continue to add more templates to this as we work on newer projects. It has an HTML4.5 architecture, so it's a mixed architecture again to support lower browser versions. We believe that if desktops are there in the mix of devices that you're targeting, there are chances that you will have older versions of browsers as well available on those desktops. So if you have to target them, you will have to get an HTML4.5 architecture. It accepts all sorts of media, including the HTML5 tags. It can output on an LMS or on PhoneGap apps. So you could publish it through standards compliant LMS, or you can publish it through something like PhoneGap to create apps. If you were to just, so let's say you wanted to create just a mobile app, you could use the framework to create just one app which would be published through PhoneGap and delivered through an app store. Our key challenges on this project, or this framework rather, which was comparatively more long drawn, because while we were creating it, we were also creating samples and playing with that, so we could kind of cover all the bases. Very, very iterative development. We realized that what you do for just the desktop, and even based on our experience of creating adaptive design, I think when it goes on to smaller devices, it's just a very different experience that you have. So the user experience being the primary thing that we wanted to focus on, I think we realized that we need to rework on various things, and we did that a few times. So I think we had to take a few iterations to really reach an acceptable level there. But then that's really a learning process. Once you do that, maybe with a few projects, it is something that should happen more naturally. We believe storyboarding formats would need to change. We face challenges with the way our instructional designers would storyboard a normal e-learning program, if you approach the same way for responsive e-learning, you would end up doing iterations. So I think ideally to avoid those iterations, the story mode formats might need to change. A simple example would be sometimes in storyboards you have things written like, on the right of this image, show this text, etc. But on a smaller screen, you might find that the text has gone below the image. So that instruction may not be really relevant for the developer, and it might actually confuse. In fact, there might be instructions which might be not really making sense on different devices for even the learner. So we just need to keep it a little more flexible while having core things in the storyboard, but some of the designs and layouts, we leave it to the developers to see what fits in best and how it works in the responsive scenario. Of course, we cannot use all the features of HTML5 because not all browsers have either implemented it or uniformly implemented it. So we kind of wait till they are uniformly implemented in the browsers. And most importantly, we realize that testing is a very big effort. Why I say that is because, especially in a BYOD kind of scenario, bring your own device, where you may have a lot of different device combinations being used in your organization, you have to go for something like responsive. But at the same time, you can't really test that solution with only emulators and simulators. We have tried that quite a bit, and we realized that the difference is really not understood until you see those solutions on physical devices. And we ended up creating a test lab for responsive e-learning, so we could test it on some primary devices. So we advise our clients now that whatever be the breadth of devices that you're targeting, at least freeze on certain primary devices, 5, 10 devices that you would be really targeting. Anything beyond that, maybe we can't really deliver a great experience, let's say, something like that. That kind of a caveat might be useful. So we've now ended up creating a test lab, which we now also offer as a service to our clients, that if they were creating responsive e-learning, we could very well just do the testing for them because we have the lab available. All right, so based on these case studies and the other work that we have done in the last few years, here are some key trends that we are observing. The shift from Flash to HTML is real. I think there is no denying this fact, and we're doing a lot of work in moving clients from Flash to HTML. Not that everything has to be converted to HTML. Programs which are just suitable for desktop, they don't need to be touched. Programs which are kind of ending their shelf life, they don't need to be touched. But there would be some which possibly would make sense to be made available even on tablets. So the moment you have tablets in the mix, I think you will have to look at moving some of your stuff from Flash to HTML. Also, I think tablets is a great place to start in the mobile learning journey. We've found that getting clients started on mobile learning straight away has been a little difficult, and most of you did claim that you are doing some sort of mobile learning. I don't know whether it was tablet or mobile, or what kind of mobile solutions you have been working with. But I do realize, working with a lot of our customers, that mobile has been a challenge for a vast majority of them to really just get started. And tablets seem to be so much easier because what you're doing is essentially bringing your desktop solution to tablet to start with, at least to start with. And that takes care of a lot of mobile related issues as well, because tablets per se work in a different environment. So yes, if you were to start with tablets, that would really be a great place to start on your mobile learning journey. Flash still continues to act as a fallback for the older browsers. Also, we believe that if you're doing only desktop-based solutions, even now, Flash is unbeatable. You still get the best output with Flash because HTML can't really compete on the richness that it can provide at this stage. So Flash still works very well if you're doing just desktop-based solutions. Also, we realized that creating native solutions across different platforms is quite costly, especially if you have to bring in third-party components like plugins or payment gateways, or like the QR code reader we had. So the moment you get into those things, it would become more and more costly. So if you're doing native for just one platform, it might make more sense. So if your organization has distributed, let's say, just iOS devices, and you are really trying to provide an offline experience or something which uses the capability of those devices to the fullest, which can't be used with offline or the online web-based versions, I think then it makes sense. But going for native for all the devices is very cumbersome. And I think responsive is really the way to go, given the behavior patterns, how they are changing, how we are using multiple devices in a day, how we switch from one device to another, how we kind of start a particular task on one device and tend to finish it on another, etc. I think responsive is the way, really, I think, where the learning itself, and that is where the difference between e-learning and m-learning will really vanish. But that is how we see the learning programs are going to move. So that's pretty much it from our side, and we have some time for questions. So happy to take any questions that you may have. And while you type in your questions, I would invite your attention to our blog, which has a lot of great information on mobile and even tablet learning. Our slide share is quite active. So if you were to go at our channel on SlideShare, you will find quite a few interesting presentations out there. All right, so if there are no questions, we'll end this by thanking you. Thank you very much, and have a good day, good evening, good night, wherever you are. We'll be in touch sometime soon. Thank you.